Madeleine L'Engle Camp was born on November 29, 1918 in New York City. Her father, Charles Wadsworth Camp, made his living as a writer, and her mother, Madeleine Hall Barnett Camp, a noted piano player. Madeleine was given over to the care of a nanny and had a strict childhood spent mainly in private schools. L'Engle spent her first years with her parents and her English nanny, Miss O'Connell, in a two-bedroom apartment on 82nd Street in New York. The city provided many opportunities for her to experience the arts, and her parents often entertained musicians, artists, and writers in the evenings. This atmosphere fostered her creativity and imagination, which inspired her to write her first story at the age of 5. She continued her interest in writing throughout her school years and used her hobby to combat the loneliness she often felt. During the winter of 1930 to 1931, Charles Camp developed pneumonia, and his doctors encouraged him to leave New York City as soon as he recovered. The family moved to Switzerland, and L'Engle was sent to Châtellard, a girls' boarding school in Montreux, Switzerland. At Châtellard, she and a friend experimented with dream states as inspiration for writing. The two girls had read about poppies and opium in books and learned that the flower would enhance their dreams, so they planted poppies, ate them in sandwiches, and kept their dream journals at their bedsides. She credits this experience with awakening a sensitivity due to the world of the subconscious, a sensitivity that was crucial to her and her writing. In the fall of 1933, Madeleine was sent to a boarding school in Charleston, South Carolina. After high school, Madeleine attended Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts, and graduated with honors in 1941. Upon graduation, she and 3 other friends rented an apartment in New York City. Madeleine split her time between writing and acting. She continued to act until 1947. Through acting, she met Hugh Franklin, who was a fellow actor. They married on January 26, 1946. They purchased an old farmhouse located near Goshen, Connecticut. They named this home Crosswicks. Hugh and Madeleine split their time between Crosswicks and New York City. Hugh continued to act while Madeleine wrote. In 1947, their daughter Josephine was born, and in 1952, their son Bion. When Bion was born, Madeleine and Hugh moved to Crosswicks full-time. They purchased and ran a general store. In 1956, a close friend of Madeleine's died, leaving a 7-year-old girl parentless. The Franklins adopted Maria in 1957. When all the children were off at school, L'Engle began to write Meet the Austins, a book inspired by her own family. The work was to be of the first of a successful series for L'Engle. Meet the Austins was later placed on the list of the American Library Association's notable children's books of 1960. By 1959, the family was ready for a change and decided to take a 10-week camping trip. During this vacation, L'Engle got ideas for a new book. She jotted them down, and as soon as she got back to Crosswicks, she began writing. This led to the birth of A Wrinkle in Time. A Wrinkle in Time is a story of Meg Murray, a high school-aged girl who is transported on an adventure through time and space with her younger brother, Charles Wallace, and her friend Calvin O'Keefe to rescue her father, a gifted scientist, from the evil forces that hold him prisoner on another planet. Meg is a homely, awkward, but loving girl, troubled by personal insecurities and her concern for her father, who has been missing for over a year. With the help of 3 celestial creatures, Miss Whatsit, Miss Witch, and Miss Who, and their gift of tesseracting, Meg, Calvin, and Charles Wallace wrinkled through time to save their father from the planet Camazos, all while tessering through planets. The children must save their father and themselves from a terrifying rhythmic pulsation of it, a giant disembodied brain. L'Engle was discouraged when the book was rejected by 26 publishers, but she kept sending out her manuscript, which was finally purchased by Farrar, Straub, and Giroux and published in 1962. The book was a great success, winning several honors, including the Newbery Medal, the American Library Association's Notable Book Award, the Lewis Carroll Shelf Award, and the Hans Christian Andersen Runner-Up Award. Madeleine then created 3 sequels, A Wind in the Door in 1973, A Swiftly Tilting Planet in 1978, and Many Waters in 1986, which formed what is popularly known as the Time Fantasy Trilogy. In 1989, An Acceptable Time was written, and was written to take place a generation after A Wrinkle in Time, and made the collection of books a quintet. A Wind in the Door talks about Meg, Calvin, and the disagreeable school principal, Mr. Jenkins, having to travel inside one of Charles Wallace's mitochondria to save him from a deadly disease, part of a cosmic battle against the evil Ecthroi and forces of Unaming. A swiftly tilting planet takes place years later with the 15-year-old Charles Wallace and the unicorn Gaudior trying to save the world from nuclear war by going back in time to stop the destruction caused by Mad Dog Branzillo. He's not alone though. He is accompanied in spirit through Keithing by Meg at home expecting her first child. In the book Many Waters, Meg and Charles's twin brothers, Sandy and Denny's, accidentally test her back in time to a desert with unicorns and mammoths. They are rescued by Japheth, a man whose sister the boys fall in love with and feud over. In the final book, An Acceptable Time, Megan Calvin's eldest daughter, Polly O'Keefe, visits her maternal grandparents only to find herself trapped 3,000 years in the past, caught up in a struggle between the people of the wind and the warlike, drought-stricken people across the lake. A Wrinkle in Time was undoubtedly the most popular and controversial book. The book was banned in some areas in the United States because some parents believed it promoted witchcraft, crystal balls, and demons, and mentioned Jesus along with scientists and artists together. Despite the controversy of this book, it has been published multiple times, and in 2003, a television adaptation of the novel was made by Disney. L'Engle continued to write, more prolific than ever, and expanded her writing to nonfiction. Franklin's death in 1986 inspired a book about her life with him, two-part Invention, The Story of a Marriage, published in 1988. Madeleine characterized herself not as a Christian writer, but as a writer who was struggling to be a Christian. She also said that writing was a form of contemplative prayer. L'Engle said, "To paint a picture, or to write a story, or to compose a song is an incarnational activity. In a very real sense, the artist should be like Mary, who, when the angel told her that she was to bear the Messiah, was obedient to commands." In 1980, Madeleine wrote Walking on Water. She wrote, "I move into an area of faith, which is beyond the conscious control of my intellect. The challenge is to let my intellect work for the creative act, not against it. And this means, first of all, that I must have more faith in the work than I have in myself." In addition to the numerous awards, medals, and prizes won by the individual books L'Engle wrote, she personally received many honors over the years. This included the USM Medallion from the University of Southern Mississippi, the Regina Award, and the Allen Award for Outstanding Contribution to Adolescent Literature presented by the National Council of Teachers of English. In 1985, she was a guest speaker at the Library of Congress giving a speech entitled Dare to Be Creative. That same year, she began a 2-year term as president of the Authors Guild. Without disagreement or doubt, the literary world would be lacking something had Madeleine L'Engle not given the world her books and sense of another world. She was not only a writer, but a storyteller who died at 88 years old on September 6, 2007. She might have died, but will always be living through her books, and maybe come back through A Wrinkle in Time. She always did believe she was Meg Murray.